Hello, everybody.
What up, New York?
Wow, what an awesome day it's been. It's incredible to see all these people in real life. Very happy to be out here talking about what might be one of the most important topics of this week, which is the law. I'm Salah Zalatimo. I'll be moderating. I'm the CEO of Voice, an NFT platform. And to my right, we have Dave Rodman from the Rodman Law Group, Ghaith Mahmood from Latham & Watkins, and Stu Levy from Scat and Arps. Dave, can I turn it to you to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Dave Rodman. I'm the founder and managing partner of the Rodman Law Group. We practice quite heavily in the blockchain and crypto space and work with some very large NFT projects that are truly changing the game. Shout out to Charged Particles and Nameless. But that's it. We've got very little time. I'm going to pass it on over.
Hey, everyone. It's Ghaith here. I'm at Latham & Watkins. Great to meet everyone. My practice is really about how do you take technology and use that to create, monetize, commercialize, and share content in new and interesting ways. And so 3 years ago, I was doing virtual reality, augmented reality, and NFTs were there. CryptoKitties was around. It was breaking Ethereum here and there. But really, this year has just taken off with NFT work. I'm sure I was talking with you, Stu, the same thing. So folks that I work with, Dapper Labs, Autograph.io. I work with Ava Labs, helping them with their NFT platforms. And just folks all over the spectrum, whether they're sharing their IP so that others can mint NFTs from it, or they're IP owners themselves and want to figure out, what am I getting myself into if I'm letting somebody make an NFT based off my intellectual property?
Hey everybody, so Stu Levy. I'm a technology transaction intellectual property lawyer at Skadden Arps here in New York. I have been, used to be a software engineer, decided I wasn't very good at that and went into the law. So I've been doing technology law for a lot of years now, have lived through a lot of different technology revolutions. I find this one to be probably the most exciting of all those I've worked with. In our practice, we've been doing blockchain digital asset work pretty much as the majority of our practice for about 6 years now. And for the last 12 months, that has not surprisingly morphed into NFT work, representing everyone from platforms to right holders, people doing really creative and innovative things. As I said, I think it's amongst the most interesting innovations in technology I've seen in a long, long time.
Thank you all very much. Well, from your purviews, I'm sure you've seen some of the most gnarly and complicated topics to affect the NFT space. But we'd like to take it a little bit from a more simple point of view, because sometimes that actually is the most complicated. So, Dave, if I can start with you. When you're minting or creating an NFT, what should creators be thinking about in terms of the intellectual property rights?
Yeah, so I think the classic lawyer answer is it depends. And so depending on what the underlying media is, that answer is going to be slightly different. But at a broad level, they should be concerned about copyright and trademark. They should basically have the rights to their work and arguably should register it with the U.S. Copyright Office or the USPTO in the case of trademarks. The corollary to that is not only to make sure that they own it themselves, but to make sure that they're not minting something that is somebody else's by accident or intentionally or what have you. A lot of the platforms have an API peg or an SDK peg that will allow the platform to do a takedown on copyright if it's a violation. But some platforms like Arweave, it's like once it's up, it's permanently up there. And if you have minted something that isn't yours, you are subject to significant statutory damages that people can bring against you if they've registered their trademarks or their copyrights. So I think the most important thing is that, yes, a copyright exists the moment that you take an idea and fix it in a tangible medium of expression, very lawyerly definition, so as soon as you make something. But in order to properly advocate for yourself, enforce your rights, make sure that you can get everything you should be able to get out of your hard work, you have to register it. And that's sort of the thing that right now is the missing piece in this space. So how is that?
Excellent. Fascinating. How many people here have ever minted an NFT? How many have successfully sold one? Okay, and how many people here have bought an NFT? Wow, looks like an even split, actually. So, you just heard about the potential legal challenges around property rights when you're minting. Stu, would you mind telling us a little bit about what it means to buy an NFT with regards to the intellectual property rights?
Sure. So I would say one thing sort of as an intro to this section generally. So we, in our practice, as you can imagine, we deal with a lot of different areas of the law, securities law, commodities law, bank regulatory law, all sorts of things like that. And we have experienced on the front lines and firsthand the incredible frustration of how the law might not be keeping up with this technology, might not appreciate or understand decentralized technology, which I'm very sensitive to. Intellectual property, I think, is a little bit of a different area. IP law generally works in this space. We sometimes get clients who say, oh, intellectual property doesn't apply to decentralized transactions, to NFTs. It does. But also, IP law, more so than a lot of other areas of laws, over time, has done a much better job than in some other areas of keeping up with technology by either case law, judges deciding decisions, faced with new kinds of technology, or with the law just changing to address new kinds of technology that are out there. So this brings us to NFTs and sort of what rights do you get when you buy an NFT. So you have to start with the premise of what rights do you get when you buy anything in the creative arts space. And the answer is not a lot from an intellectual property perspective. So what that means, if we start with just the painting on the wall, the physical painting on the wall, if you buy a painting from an artist at auction, directly from the artist, from a gallery, you don't get what we call intellectual property rights in that painting, meaning you can hang it on your wall, you can enjoy it, a bunch of things you can do with it, show your friends, but it doesn't give you the right to decide, this is actually really cool, I'm going to put this on T-shirts, mugs, and posters and sell it. Because you don't own the intellectual property rights, that stays with the artist. So morph that over to the NFT space. In the main, that is true as well. If the artist or creator doesn't give the users any rights affirmatively, we'll talk about what that means in a second, then you as the owner of the NFT have not gotten any intellectual property rights. So you own your NFT, you can look at your NFT, you can display it, a couple other things you can probably do with it, but you can't now go and on your own monetize that. I mean, you can't put it on mugs, T-shirts, posters, probably can't mint another NFT with that for intellectual property reasons. So you're limited in what you can do. So how do you know what rights you do and don't get? Because remember, the baseline legal concept is you get nothing other than the right to sort of enjoy the work as it is. From an intellectual property perspective, you don't affirmatively get anything. So what you need to do is look at the user agreement that came along with the work when you purchased it. And the user agreement will tell you what rights you have. It's funny, I feel historically in the NFT space, which means, we go back to Q1 of 2021, so like in the old days of NFTs, almost every project you looked at was incredibly clear about what rights you did not get. It often went on, I wouldn't say for pages, but for paragraphs about what rights you don't get. You can display it, you can look at it, you can share it with your friends, you can sell it on a platform, sometimes a platform we support, but you can't do anything else with it, including you can't commercialize it, you can't put in a video, on and on and on. What is interesting is what has happened more recently is there's been a little bit of a shift in that some of the, especially the PFP projects that are out there, but some of them have decided to empower the user community by giving you certain rights. So again, it's not because by definition you get that, it's because the agreement, the user agreement, you click on I agree when you buy something, provides you with certain rights that used to not be given in connection with NFTs. And those range dramatically. So there's definitely no one size fits all. Some will allow you to do certain kinds of commercialization, T-shirts, posters, mugs, things like that. Some of them will allow you to do that, but cap the amount of money you can make by doing that. Some of them allow you to do everything you want except for what that project might be. So it might be you can do everything, but you can't create an animated series with your NFT character because that's sort of what we as the minter of the NFT do for a living. So it's very important to look at what those rights are and how they're conveyed. And I think we're seeing a little bit, as I said, a sea change. Again, it's only been like Q1 to Q3 of granting people additional rights that they might not have normally had. But again, it comes down to what the agreement says. That's where it begins and ends. Two final points. What's really interesting is that even in the projects that have been very liberal in terms of giving their users rights in their NFTs, they almost always don't allow you to use the name of the project or the name of your character. So that limits you in terms of how much you can exploit that image that you own. So I've got my image, t-shirts, mugs, posters, but if I want to get together with 7 other people and do, a joint t-shirt or sweatshirt and have, at the top the name of the project, I'm not allowed to do that because, again, the user agreement says you have no rights to use the name. So you want to put your image on the way it looks, great, but you can't do more than that. And then the final thing I'll say, and then I'll stop, is that there's a really interesting issue lurking out there, one of the biggest issues in IP and NFTs, which is, does the agreement that the initial buyer agreed to travel with the NFT? Yeah. And for the most part, it probably doesn't. Meaning, if I'm a buyer of an NFT on a third-party platform, I'm buying the NFT. I never agreed to anything. I never agreed to terms of use. I never clicked on anything. You could put terms of use in the metadata, but I've got to actually have seen that metadata and agreed to that metadata in order to agree to those terms. And no one's doing that. Even engineers looking at metadata are not then probably clicking on the terms of use. So there's an interesting issue of what rights do downstream users have and not have, and what have you bound them to? It generally doesn't give them more rights. It probably gives them less rights, but it's really an important concept to think about. And there's some solutions that are lurking out there of people creating almost, I guess not almost, but legal NFTs that link to the project NFT. That legal NFT travels with the project or with the work. So you always have to agree to those legal terms before you can get the NFT transferred to yourself. But I think that's an interesting area that we're going to see. And I would suspect before this is all over, we're going to see some litigation in that space with people using digital works that they acquired through an NFT and arguing, I never agreed to anything. You never asked me to agree to anything, click on anything. I just got my NFT from this third-party platform.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a litigator's dream. I mean, that's what's on the horizon for sure.
I mean, there are platforms right now, and there's IP owners. So we're doing deals with sports leagues or studios that say, hey, look, I want to give you a license to use my IP. That's the cool thing about IP, right, is you can share it with other people subject to an agreement. And so they will say, hey, you're an interesting platform, you got a great minting platform, you got a way for people to sell it and get secondary royalties. I don't want to let them put my IP on a t-shirt or a mug. And some people might, and some people might not. And you got to write that stuff in the terms and conditions, right? But when that shows up on OpenSea or Rarible or one of the many other third-party marketplaces, how are you, platform that I'm giving my IP rights to, how are you making sure that the secondary buyer is subject to all those terms? And for that reason, a lot of platforms, a lot of IP owners are writing things in contracts that are really hard to enforce. They're saying, you got to make sure these NFTs only sit on this website, and that's the only place that you can access it. Well, for folks out there, that's almost antithetical to what we're trying to do with NFT. And NFTs are meant to be things that you as the user take with you. It's in your wallet. You go and you interact with a Web3 platform that connects with your wallet, it reads what's on there, and you're able to do things with that NFT with a platform that might build functionality for it. And the unlock, not just the technical unlock, but annoyingly, there's a legal unlock. The unlock for how NFTs are going to be truly portable, truly able to be used across different platforms. And when we're talking about quote-unquote premium or licensed NFTs that come from a Disney or a Warner Brothers or the NFL, is when you're able to get those IP licensors comfortable, that when they show up in all the different exciting and incredible metaverse opportunities, that the people that are using it in all those different platforms are going to be kind of bound by the same terms and conditions that the original buyer was bound by. And when they are, those licensors are going to get a lot more comfortable, in my opinion. So that's one thing. So one thing I wanted to kind of chat about is, are anybody out here running a platform that lets people mint NFTs on their own?
One.
Yeah, you are. And so like when you work with like a IP owner, like a league or a studio that wants to put their IP on your platform, and do they ask you a bunch of questions around what's going to happen with that NFT when it goes out in the universe, and how are people going to end up using this thing, and how do you make sure nobody puts LeBron James on the back of like riding, I don't know, some motorcycle on a motorcycle game and then getting into a car and motorcycle accident? Like, how aren't you telling me NFTs can go wherever they want to? How do you protect against that?
Well, we do have some pretty interesting conversations with big brands, and they tend to generally start with excitement about all this Web3 potential that we're all here and excited about. And over a series of calls, the calls generally start having more and more people on them.
Yes.
And we
The
start
biggest
hearing...
calls I've ever had, NFT license agreements. Like 50 people. You're like, who are these people?
The last one we had actually ended with, so we want an NFT that we can give to people without us giving you any of their personally identifiable information, and that NFT can never be sold or transferred.
Mm. Yeah, that doesn't...
Like, that sounds a lot like a JPEG.
Yes.
And so, absolutely. And my background is in media, and going through content moderation and going through just the transfer of media is something that I think is well established. And as we, in the legal space as well, the introduction of the concept of ownership over digital media introduces these really unique problems. And I'd love to go back, if you don't mind, to something, Dave, you brought up, which is when you buy something, the permanence of the blockchain changes the legal liability of something. A DMCA takedown is not instant anymore. It might be impossible. As a creator, what is the real risk you're running of minting something that has real, like, trademark or copyright liability that might be permanent?
So I don't think anybody can confidently look you in the eyes and say they know 100% what the answer to that is, although they can easily say it's a very big deal because there are statutory damages per infringement on registered IP. And it varies a little bit on what we're talking about, but more or less there's really stiff fines. And it's usually based on a per use instance. So what's the use? Like how many times it was viewed, how many times it was minted. Like you could stack up these $200,000 to $2 million fines ad nauseum, and it never goes away if it's on something like Arweave. Like, so I mean, that's not practical. No judge is going to say that's practical, but I think the short answer is it's not great. Which is like a side note, like this stuff is really complex, and I think we all up here recognize that. And so what we did was make a POAP that you can use to come and speak to, actually me, I didn't actually see if these guys wanted to do it, but I'm letting people mint POAPs and get discounted and free legal advice if they, now in all fairness, I'm not a tech guy, and this kind of broke, so you're gonna end up, we were frantically backstage, me and Salah, trying to make it work, so you're actually gonna have to DM me to get the actual POAP, but Charged Particles made us a little gift for the event, so come talk to us, and that sounded really shilly, I'm sorry, I didn't. Well, I was really excited about the POAP, and it didn't work, I'm sorry, guys.
I want to talk for a second, though, about the platform issue, Rage, which is really interesting. So what we're referring to is there's a concept out there in intellectual property law known as the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Amongst the different things it does, which is one very powerful thing, which is if you're operating a platform, you're not liable for infringing content that people put on your platform if you haven't curated it. So you just open up the table, say to people, put on whatever you want, mint whatever NFTs you want, we'll put them up there, and we're not curating them. You're not liable yourself for having fostered that copyright infringement. There's one key thing you need to do, though, which is you need to provide notice out to people that if you think your work was infringing, there's a way to contact us. We will look at your claim, and if it turns out you have rights and this other guy didn't, we'll take the work down. So that works for every platform until you get to Web3, which is, so what does that mean in a blockchain space to take a work down? So it's interesting. I feel like the DMCA is going to get all this, increased attention. It's sort of been this sort of, lazy but important area of the law that's been out there. So it's interesting. There are a couple ways to look at it, because the real requirement under the DMCA is to take the work down. And as you know, for most NFTs that are out there, the NFT and the work are not both on chain. So I think the best way to look at it is that as long as you can take the work down from your platform, meaning no one can see it, if you've got it on your own proprietary server, you pull it off the server. The IPFS issue is really super interesting about how far do you have to go to take it down from IPFS. IPFS itself, interestingly, has its own Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown provisions, but only applies to certain gateways. So you might not be able to fully take it down. But we think at least there's a very strong argument that you don't have to burn the NFT. First of all, you probably can't burn the NFT, but even if you ran a platform where you could burn the NFT, we think there's a good argument that you don't have to, because nothing historically in that act has talked about taking down, every mention of the fact that someone claimed they own it. So it's not like if I had, a good old brick and mortar business and someone came along and said, that's my, work that's infringing, they prove it, we take it down, then you'd have to go into a file cabinet and find, every correspondence and every certificate where someone claimed they owned it. The act does not require you to do that. And we think there's an analogy to NFT. So the NFT is permanent. The metadata is now pointing arguably to nothing, but you probably as a platform provider are still protected from having to worry about the fact that the NFT is still up there, if you're able to pull the work down.
I mean, that's why when we're doing deals, a lot of the licensors want to ask, where is the media going to be stored? And that's the same thing that you all, at least when I'm buying an NFT, I ask. Sometimes I can't even get an answer. Half the time I'm on a Solana NFT, and I ask, can I just read the smart token and find out where the heck this is stored? And it takes me to Metaplex, and it gets complicated. And for a lot of users, they're trying to figure out, am I going to get rug pulled? Is my NFT going to get taken down? The media, is that going to get taken down and nobody's going to be able to see what my NFT is tied to? And being able to communicate it both to the IP owners to say, hey, look, I got you. If somebody takes this NFT and they put it in a place where it shouldn't be for whatever reason, we have a way to take that down. But at the same time, balancing with end users to say, I got you all. Your NFT is not going to break. You are able to have some assurances that where that media is stored is not reliant on one person running an IPFS gateway or one person running an Amazon Web Services server. And if they decide to go down, your NFT's broken. That balance is really hard. And that balance is something that folks are working on right now, and they're trying to work it out, but it's going to take time. The last piece I want to just quickly talk about is a lot of people talk about NFTs aren't just art, they're an experience. Like when I buy an NFT, I get to do all these interesting things with it. The way, if you're buying an NFT, the way to figure out what experiences go to it are go in those terms of service like Stuart, you were talking about. I mean, Bored Ape Yacht Club, when you're, I've Bored Ape Yacht Club owners in the house. Are there folks that, did you read the terms when you bought your Bored Ape Yacht Club?
Every single one.
I mean, it gave you commercial rights. It said you can go and you can commercialize the art under that. But when you bought what's another? Stoner Cats, not to pick on Stoner Cats, but when you bought a Stoner Cat, you got personal license rights. You couldn't go and commercialize that. And at the time people were buying it, nobody was paying attention to that. But that concept, NFT owners, I think, are some of the most savvy IP folks out there, because this is an asset of theirs, and they're paying attention to what I get when I buy it, and I think that's just going to increase more and more, and it's really exciting to see.
So quick public service announcement. I just need to do this. I don't know if Stoner Cats folks are out there. They're a client of ours. You actually now do get commercial rights.
Okay, I didn't mean to pick on you for Stoner Cats. I saw you and it made me think of them.
Lose my job or something by not mentioning it.
Oh yeah, and none of this was legal advice, by the way. We should have said that at the beginning. Like, that's a serious thing. We're not your lawyers.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much. It was awesome.
That was great.
Thank you,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.